Hi Jessica, thank you for coming in to meet me and do our episode 7 of our Women Who Make It Happen series.
Hi Michelle, thanks for inviting me today.
You're welcome. Would you mind giving us a brief intro, a little bit about you?
Yeah, so I'm head of compliance at a scale-up called Lifebit Biotech Limited, where we focus on providing genomics data for research between biobanks and pharmaceutical companies and large research universities, etc. as well, to develop new medicines and find new technologies to address all kinds of rare illnesses that exist today.
Oh, that's very interesting. How did you get into your field?
So I've worked in the data privacy and cybersecurity space for quite a long time, and compliance as well. I was called up on an opportunity, and I applied for it. And I was really attracted by the work that they're doing in terms of enhancing developments in the field that's absolutely crucial to all of us. It affects us, our families going forward in the future, and really looking at using what we have today in terms of genome sequencing for advancement of protections for the rest of us going forward.
Really interesting. So from your university, your studies, and then your earlier career, could you give us a little bit more insight into the Jess that sits in front of us today?
So I did business management at university at King's College, and then I did an MSc in banking and international finance. I went to work at KPMG within a tax area for international taxes. I then springboarded within the company into their information protection department after having actually had a stint in business efficiency operations, working with government for 6 months during that period as well, and then went on to qualify in information protection, cybersecurity for some of you, and data privacy on top of that. Went on to work at PwC, Standard Chartered Bank, and then started moving into the tech area, full tech area, with companies in the M&A space, technologies for sharing data and M&A transactions, and then started moving into startups, scale-ups, in areas which I was really interested in. So EVs was the one before Lifebit, and now currently in the scale-up space, obviously in the biomedical field, but lots of transferable skills which helped me to pivot between different areas. I will have to admit, I never thought I would end up in compliance. And I'm sure that people say, how did you make that career transition?
That was one of my questions.
I was going to say, in terms of how that happened as a consultant, actually, you spend a lot of time working with large corporates. You have a lot of good internal training. I have to say PwC had some of the best compliance training that I've seen, but also for companies such as Shell, the big banks. And you'd have to do compliance training at least 3 or 4 times a year. So I felt very, very comfortable, I think, in that area. But most importantly, I think at that point in time, when I pivoted to work within the cybersecurity space, it allowed me to take some of the skills that I had, even within tax, into a completely new space, a space that was growing incredibly at that point in time. I networked my way in an organization to catch up, have a lunch with some people, and met a partner in the cybersecurity practice. And I said to him, hey, I guess you have a lot of tech geeks working for you. He said, we've got plenty of those, but we don't have anyone who can speak to people. And I said, well, this is your lucky day. Because I've done a lot of client management. I used to manage large projects over $1 million with consultancy services a year for large corporates. And then he said, well, why not? See if you can join us. And I think that led to a new career, I think. Taking skills from one area, understanding processes, focusing really on the 80% that you can do, and just having an open mind in terms of opportunities. Be ready for opportunities, look for opportunities, because I'm sure there are people who are very lucky and opportunities come to them, but you have to make space, I think, and back yourself and say, hey, you know what? 80% of jobs are very, very similar. They have a lot of the same skills: stakeholder management, presentations, working with data, that you can take from job to job. Really.
And are these some of the skills that you found are most transferable to help you where you are now?
I think definitely being able to multitask, being able to understand operational processes, because I think when I worked in the tax area, I used to run operational teams, providing services to clients, being able to put yourself in the shoes of your clients, understanding how that feels. If you were a recipient of the service, what would you like? Ultimately, we're all clients and customers of somebody. Yeah. Whether it's, I believe a lot of even government departments now call their internal stakeholders my internal clients. But that's actually really true. I think being able to put that perspective on and saying, if I were them, how would I like to experience this? Yeah. Is actually common to all jobs. I think a lot of work that we do today in terms of research, understanding, presenting reports, data, updating processes is common to all jobs, actually. So I would say that the technical knowledge that I've had to learn along the way has formed 20% of my job. And if you are prepared and passionate about the value it brings, anything is possible.
Yeah. No, it's really, really interesting. You've touched on a little bit about falling into cybersecurity, IT risk. What have you experienced as the main challenges, if any, being a female leader?
Yep.
In what was typically a very male-dominated sector of the industry.
It's still very male-dominated. Went to an event recently, a dinner held by a supplier, and it was all men. Most of the meetings I go to are still all men. But so the challenge is, I think, for a lot of women, feeling like they belong in the room, and then perhaps being deterred about perhaps not meeting I'd say, the customary attendee sort of profile that you have at the table, mainly male, mainly in the age ranges of 40 to 60, and then feeling that you have a place in it. It helps to be a little bit shameless. And I perhaps say this jokingly, but it is actually true. I think as women, sometimes we wait to be invited to the table, and the invitation, ladies, is not coming, because people tend to ask people who look like themselves. You have to proactively advocate for yourself, find events, turn up. You might feel uncomfortable, but at the end of the day, actually, we're all human. I'd say most of the conversation is either around a work topic or what your family has been doing over the weekend. None of the topics of conversation are actually outlandish and nothing that you wouldn't already have in sort of conversations with any of your friends or your neighbor around the corner. And I think that I think the thought is worse than the actual reality, and that women kind of need to just put themselves out there. So the invitation is absolutely not just coming out of the blue. I think it's understanding that is believing that you've got value to add. In my experience, women who work in any field, in if you are in that area of your career where you're looking at senior management, most of the women I see work far harder than men to prove that they are worth it. we are worth it. I completely assure everyone, having been at the table, that most women that I meet are more than capable of holding their own in that room. So we shouldn't ever presuppose that we don't belong there.
Do you still see that being prominent in the industry, or maybe less so now because there's a lot of D&I policies that are brought in and a real focus on we need to have more women on our board, we need to have more women at leadership level?
I think it's not as bad as it used to be, but still, you can't attend what you never knew about. For example, there's an event, or if you don't actively go, there is an invite out, but you feel like, well, maybe I might feel a bit uncomfortable going there because I might be the only woman. It's totally okay. It's great. And it's even better to see other women there. And actually, it makes me really happy when I see another woman in the room, but a little bit of discomfort didn't kill anybody. I'd say that's really important, but actually just the act of turning up and saying, hey, I belong here. I've got value. It's really important. It's not, I don't think it's ever a conscious exclusion.
Yeah.
I'm sure that when I entered the dinner that I did the other day, that nobody went through the list and said, this is who I should invite. But generally, I guess in my field, it is still mainly men. But imagine that I didn't take the opportunity because I felt like, I'd be different.
Yeah.
And, I would be the only woman there, and I am probably still the youngest in the room. And I don't think anyone consciously excludes people these days, but it's still a fact that I think there's still underrepresentation, but it's also for us to challenge that stereotype and our discomfort levels about turning up.
What more do you think then can be done, either by organisations individually or generally within the industry, to promote more diversity? And we come to that question of what does diversity actually mean? What does it look like? So from your experience or your thoughts, what would you think?
So I think for me, diversity is an interesting thing. So moving away from, I guess, from whether it's male or female agenda, I've tended to operate mainly female teams because actually I've tended to find that I think stakeholder management tends to be better. Women generally also tend to find work harder because specifically for the reason that I talked about having to almost prove that you are worth it. I think that mentality is still really strong within most women I know who want to advance. It's like, I've got to be better than a guy. So I tend to find that they're way more engaged. They're trying to continuously improve, make themselves better. But diversity for me, having worked in a lot of global firms, it's actually reflected very much more in the diversity of where people come from, socioeconomic background, experience, age ranges being actually a really important part of that as well, because I've worked in places where it's predominantly, I think, a very young workforce. So you're not getting the right perspectives from more experienced people as well.
And it's the different learning, isn't it, of imparting wisdom, imparting knowledge.
Yeah. And it's just the diversity of thought and experience. But within a global environment, or in any environment, actually, I think it's really important to look at risk and compliance really with a really global mindset, and really link it to individual perspectives as well. So if you have a very homogenous team, I think within the risk and compliance function, and that could be homogenous, you could be in an Asian bank with only people from Asia, you could be a Scandinavian bank with only people from the specific country. You are really locked into looking at things from a very specific perspective.
Yeah.
And often we don't know what we don't know as well. I mean, the study of cultural differences and what the norms are and how we perceive and accept risk. And I think the social norms around it are actually quite different. So in the company that I'm in right now, we have people from Europe. I'm previously from Singapore, and I spent most of my time in the UK and in Europe. We have a remote workforce, global clients, and we were able to flex to thinking the way that our clients think, and meet their language requirements and see things from their perspective as well. So I think that's absolutely important to align your teams to, your target audience, so that you can manage, I think, risk and compliance really effectively.
Yeah, and I think that all-inclusive environment is sometimes a lot more powerful in terms of the message that you're sending across to your clients. If you're in consulting or if you're dealing with like B2B operations.
Or even B2C, because, and also the diversity of background actually also includes what people have done before in their careers. Because one thing that has actually definitely changed, I think, that I've perceived is there is less of, obviously the volume and velocity of change has been absolutely startling, I think, over the last few years, compared to when I first started, where, life was pretty slow and sort of defined. I'm showing my age here. But the speed of regulatory change has changed. The scope of what we need to cover has changed as well. And without a team that has had different backgrounds in terms of whether it's some people from legal, some people from operations, some people from pure tech, and security and risk, you can't actually cover your obligations. You can't catch gaps. You can't necessarily keep up with it. And the speed at which you can tackle a problem absolutely changes when you've got a multidisciplinary team saying, I used to do that. You might want to watch out for this and this area. But from a legal perspective, this is what we're thinking. So I think that multidisciplinary team and that diversity is actually really key as well. Yeah,
no, it's really good. I just want to circle back. Mm-hmm. You've touched upon like teams that you've been a part of, more female heavy teams in the past. So when it comes to you, Jess, team management, people management, I know you've been heavily involved.
Yes.
So what does that look like for you in terms of what excited you about getting into management, and then what's your leadership style, if you don't mind sharing with us?
I think I'm really open. I think as a leader, what I want people to understand is it's not pretty and it's not perfect. I think there is a view that when you get to a more senior position, things must be easy. You must have, I think some of my favorites are, I thought I wouldn't have to do this work already. I'm like, no, you do what needs to be done, because I assure you, look at my plate. It's 50% admin, just like yours. You just have more admin than me, but it doesn't go away. It doesn't stop. I think I like to be really, really open, and I think I'll say people first. I am very outcomes driven, but what I like to give my team is flexibility in terms of how they achieve an outcome. There's a lot of discussion. I'll say, strategically, this is where we are going. I would like your input into how you think we can do it. I've got my idea, but let's throw it all into the ring together. You all have different experiences, or especially you, for example, you've done this before. Give us your perspective of what's worked, what's not, why hasn't it worked. So I think in terms of the environment, it's a very inclusive environment, and I like people to be able to. There's a period of time when, at the start of a working relationship, it's a question. There's a discussion that happens that's around what they want to achieve, how they want to develop. My job as a leader is to give them the opportunities to, one, use what they already know, two, have the chance to develop skills in areas that they want to develop, and giving them the space to do that. Now, also the recognition that often the business cadence, I guess, varies a lot over time. And there will be periods of time where we can't achieve everything that we would love to achieve, I think from a personal development perspective, because the business has a huge amount of demand. But the moment that we do have the space for them to then focus on it, to sort of balance it all out. So it's a lot about balance, a lot of focus on personal, sort of mental health, well-being, being absolutely crucial, because we bring our best when we are at our best.
I agree.
And I think I am quite direct in my communication, and open. And with that is the acknowledgement that if you're having a bad day or having a bad period, let me support you the best that I can so that you have the space to get back to where you need to be in order to perform. The openness is really important, because the last thing I want to do is to judge someone's productivity without perspective.
Yeah.
But also recognizing that when it doesn't work, I think from a team perspective or for an individual perspective, that needs to be addressed as swiftly as possible. I think as well, it's a two-way street. We have to work as a team.
Yeah.
And the focus really is also on the team health as a whole. So everyone's got to pull their own weight. We do give the flex in the team to support each other when it's required, but the quid pro quo is you must be giving the best that you can at any given point in time, because your team is supporting you, so you need to support them too. So it's about that collective. So I think that in terms of my leadership style is how I run my teams.
No, that's really good. And obviously their success is a direct correlation to your success.
And it's really important that to me to give my team the credit for all the hard work that they've done. And for them to see that it is recognized, not just by me, but by the wider leadership. So, we're currently undergoing some compliance transformation work, and I'm now asking the teams to feed in their wins and their successes to be put in front of the executive team, so that they feel heard and they feel recognized. Through that. And I think that's incredibly important as well, being seen and heard.
Yeah, that voice recognition, I think that's conducive to really positive outcomes and then positive team morale. So
yeah,
very good. Jess, you've talked about multitasking.
Yes.
I know you are also a working mum.
Yes.
How have you found that and your career and getting to where you are in the role that you do today?
I think I have been incredibly fortunate. In some ways, it has been extremely challenging. I think I said it to other people before.
You seem to make it look a bit easy, so.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. My advice to anybody is never do it until you're ready. I would not have been ready don't quite want to give away my age, but I would not have been ready any earlier than my mid-30s. And I always thought I'd be a young mother. I do not know where I got that from. I thought at 26 I'll be a mom. But with the benefit of hindsight, why did I ever think that it was going to happen? I think I had too much in my mind, stuff I wanted to do. I wanted to travel. I wanted to have a career. And I thought perhaps I could have it all, but you can have it all, but maybe not at once. I think that's the reality. And there are going to have to be sacrifices. And I think becoming a mother has had a huge amount of sacrifice attached to it. I used to travel a lot for work. I no longer do so. And I've consciously taken jobs that do not have a large travel element. I know friends who still do that, but that's my personal choice. And I've not wanted to travel, but in the future I probably will. I have been blessed. I think, to have a good support network of friends. So because I'm from Singapore, my parents are in Singapore, so I haven't had a family network to sort of fall back on, and unfortunately my partner's parents are no longer around. So we found it incredibly difficult, incredibly expensive. But we have had an incredible group of friends to speak to. I would definitely say for anybody who is thinking of being pregnant or has very young kids, you must invest in your friendships and relationships around you. It is so incredibly important, and you will only ever get back what you give. Again, probably exactly the same as when I talked about turning up to industry events. If you do not turn up and be open to meeting people, I've met some incredible friends over the last few years, but they have been a result of me being really open to interactions, not necessarily going to a play group and meeting people, but very organically having conversations with people whilst out on a walk. You're sitting next to someone in a cafe. When you have that chemistry and you click, that's a way stronger relationship than when you force yourself into in a group, because it's organic. But you have to be open to that. You have to work at building relationships. You have to work at giving. And then you will find in exchange, if you're lucky, which I'm very blessed and grateful, is that you will naturally meet a bunch of friends where you just really get along and you help each other out. I've had friends who've come over around the corner going, oh, you're going for a job interview and you don't have childcare. I'll take care of your kid for 2 hours. Because stuff has fallen through. You need that. And there's, I think, a massive underestimation of how much you have to swallow your pride and say, hey, I need help. And it's okay, because everyone else will need help at some point in time. Yeah. It's not unique. It is not weak. And I think as women, we think we can do it all. We want to do it all. We want to prove to ourselves we can do it all. But I think actually there's no shame in saying, hey, look, I need some help right now. Yeah. But it's okay, because you'll pay it back.
And that translates both in and outside of work and personal life. Yes,
I think that's definitely the case. Between teams, between friends, between family, it also builds a lot of trust. And some people have asked, how do you get certain projects through the door, especially where we've all been there. There's always a lot of politics in the workplace. When you give people opportunities to show up at their best, to help each other and have small wins, it builds trust in relationships. And that's the same whether you're in the workplace or out of it. And as a working mother, I think that has been the biggest help to me, really, as a mom who lives without family in the middle of London with extremely high costs, friends who will just turn up at your door, bring your kids around, and you're just gonna hang out, help each other out. Oh, you need to pick something up for me. They will do that, but that takes investment, and you absolutely cannot wait for that to turn up at your door.
Yes. Yeah. I just want to circle back to a comment from previous. So you were talking about team, and then you were talking almost as if like advice that you would give to other females. So really my final question to you, Jess, what would be your words of wisdom to young female talent coming into tech, coming into IT risk and security? What would you say to them?
I would say be brave, back yourself, and always ask questions. One of the things that has really helped me in my career is spending a lot of time with people who are passionate about what they do. The fastest way to skill up is to hang around with someone for who whichever topic you're working on is their pet passion. You will learn so much so quickly if only you're willing to ask and to listen. Someone will digest 10,000 hours of work and learning into a project where you work with them for 2 or 3 days. You will digest so much in that period. And it's not even swallowing your pride. I mean, literally, hey, we're working on this project together. I really want to know what you're doing. I'm really interested. How do you do it?
Yeah.
What are you thinking of? What's worked? What hasn't worked? And loads of those people are more than willing to give you the equivalent of a whole university course in a very short space of time. And it's fun when you work with someone who's passionate about what they're doing. It's not a drag. It's not like sitting in a classroom, having to slog through a book. I've done my share of studying for a lot of different exams. It's not my favorite. I can do it, but when I work with someone who's passionate about what they're doing, it doesn't feel like work at all. So I think make work seem like not work is probably one of the biggest pieces of advice. And back yourself. There's nothing you can't do. Whether you think you can or you can't, it's exactly what you're going to get. So yeah, just be brave and ask questions.
I'm a big advocate of asking questions.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jess.
Thank you very much.
Good to hear from you. This is great.
Thank you.